freaking out in the middle of the year. Not because of the books, but because of the state of the world. Hey, it's Maya, and in this video we will be doing mid-year freakout book tag, which is basically a book tag that consists of 14 questions about books that I've read up until this point in the year. It's now June, so the first half of the year, you know, let's see my reading, let's see what I liked, disliked, stuff like that. So the first question is, what is your favorite book of the first half of 2020? And for me, I have one honorary space for the reread that I did of my favorite books, and then 4 books that I want to mention that I have to mention. And then I will choose like the one out of these 4 that I've read for the first time in 2020 to be like my favorite. And of course, sequels will not be included because one specific book that is a sequel is my favorite book out of all these books, which is the second question, so we'll get to that a bit later. So the honorary place takes The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakavic because I reread them, the whole trilogy, and they're amazing still. I reread them like 100 times and I will probably reread them 100 times more. So yeah, there's that. The books that I've read for the first time this year are Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, In the Woods by Tana French, and The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Now, out of these 4 books, I think I want to choose Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I thought I would choose The Starless Sea, but as the time, you know, progresses, I'm kind of seeing that the Nevernight, it's got a plot. I think The Starless Sea is beautiful if you want to just enjoy and chill with the characters, but Nevernight has the characters, it has the plot, it was just amazing. It was fantasy. Fantasy is my favorite genre, so I think the spot of the best book in 2020 so far goes to Nevernight. So the second question is, what is the best sequel that you've read so far in the first half of the year? And for me is Us Against You by Friedrich Bachmann. This book, sequel, no sequel, it is the best book that I've read this year so far, and if I were to choose just one book to answer on all of these questions, best book, best character, best everything, it would be Us Against You by Friedrich Bachmann. The next question is about a new release that you haven't read yet but are excited for. And for me, new releases that I'm excited for are mostly those from last year. So the 4 books that I'm excited for that are new releases from the end of 2019 are Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Is an author new to me, so I'm not as excited for it because I don't know if I trust this author yet. Then we have Wayward Son, which I've heard not so good things about it, and Rainbow Rowell is an author that I really liked when I was younger, in like the beginning of university. Now I'm not sure whether I like her or not anymore, so I'm also like low-key excited for this book, but I don't want to get my hopes up. Then we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Leigh Bardugo is really polarizing for me. I either like where she's going with the plot or not. I love Six of Crows duology, obviously, but her like first trilogy that she did, I forgot how the name, I wasn't that impressed by. So I'm still like kind of hesitant about Ninth House. I'm excited for, but not that much. So that leaves Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, which he's the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is one of my best books that I've read when I was like a kid, like in high school, and it was, I don't know, I was so impressed by this book. I read it in one day and then I watched the movie that same day. So he's the author of that book, and that book was brilliant, and Imaginary Friend is his new book, so I'm the most excited for Imaginary Friend. The next question is, what is your most anticipated release of the second half of the year? And as I've said, I wasn't really into like the 2020 releases. I didn't really follow them. I don't really know which books are coming out. But there is one book that I stumbled upon a few weeks back, and it is Holly Black's new book in the Cruel Prince series, How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. This title sounds so good. It sounds so good. She is an amazing writer. I love her trilogy, The Cruel Prince. My childhood was marked by her other books, which were turned into movies. I forgot, Chronicles of Spiderwick. She's everything to me. So she's coming out with this book in November. I am so excited for it. I don't even know what this book is about. I just know that I want to read it. The next question is a saucy one. What is your biggest disappointment so far? And I have a lot of disappointments, and all of them are shocking, or at least unpopular opinions. So be prepared, because I'm gonna mention 4 books that are very popular. The House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Red, White, Royal Blue by Cassie McKinston, and Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. Now, these 4 books were the biggest disappointment of the year. The worst book that I really hated was The House of Earth and Blood. This is like 1-star book for me. Others were all 3 stars. However, Felix Ever After is kind of leaning towards 2 stars because there were some problems that were never addressed, blah blah. And then we have Red, White, Royal Blue, which I gave 3 stars. I don't understand what the hype surrounding this book is based on, because this book, in my opinion, is really unremarkable. It's just a book. And then we have 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I liked very much, but I gave it 3 stars because I expected more twists, more plot things going on. The next question is a positive one. What is your biggest surprise so far? And biggest surprise, like all of the books that I like are the books that surprised me, I think. So I could say Us Against You, I could say, I don't know, The Starless Sea, I could say Nevernight, but I will go with a book that really surprised me more because my expectations were lower than low, and it's the Heartstopper Volume 3 that surprised me the most. The first 2 volumes were really light, feel-good, fluffy volumes, not much plot, light-hearted graphic novel. And I wasn't really into it. I read the first 2 volumes, I wasn't planning to going on to the 3rd one, but I don't know what made me read the 3rd volume. I think it was like some person's review or something, but I went into the 3rd volume, you know, expecting again to be disappointed kind of, or just not engaged in the story. But the 3rd volume actually deals with serious topics like eating disorders and depression and stuff like that. It's definitely more serious in tone, so I was pleasantly surprised, and I will definitely now be continuing with this graphic novels series. I've read Alice Oseman's Radio Silence, which is definitely a heavy book, heavier than Heartstopper, so I'm hoping that she will step up her game in Heartstopper and kind of go more deep into some of the themes. The next question is, who is your favorite new to you or debut author? This is an interesting question because first of all I thought it would be easy to answer, but then I went and dug around all of the 79 books that I've read this year, and I've realized all of the new authors were disappointments, while all of the old authors that I've already read and trusted were, you know, pleasant surprise, or not surprise, I just knew that I would like them. However, I did manage to dig up a few authors. I have 3 authors here that I've encountered for the first time that were really a pleasant surprise. John Steinbeck, I finished East of Eden a few days ago and he's amazing. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I finished also a few days ago her essay about feminism, and she's amazing. And Tana French, I've read her In the Woods book, which was the most amazing. So out of these 3 new authors, I think Tana French is definitely number 1 because her writing reminds me of Donna Tartt, she's my favorite author of all of the times. And Tana French creates characters that are so morally grey and dislikable, but you just wanna, you know, be with them and follow them. And In the Woods was a crime mystery novel, which I don't usually pick up because I don't like novels that are plot heavy, because I can guess the plot so easily. I love plot, but it's just nothing surprises me anymore, you know? In the Woods surprised me, so this is why Tana French is my number 1. The next question is, who is your favorite fictional crush from this year? I like characters and I root for them to be with someone or not be with someone, you know, whatever the context is. For me to have a crush on a fictional character is just, I just don't. But if I had to choose like some of the characters that I wanted to be real people so I could have a crush on them, I guess there are a few. First honorary place, of course, to Neil Justin from the Foxhole Court. He's forever my favorite character, and not a crush. he's not a crush, but like, you know, I will just give him the honorary place here. The characters that I've read for the first time this year, one is the dragon from Uprooted, then we have Cinder from Cinder by Marissa Mayer, and third we have someone I love, the love interest from Nevernight. I forgot his name. Anyway, yeah, he's not number one because I forgot his name. Number one is definitely the dragon from Uprooted. He's like a few centuries old. His body is like young, 20-something young body. So this is like what we all want, right? Loki, someone who is very, very smart but very, very handsome. So the next question is, who is your new favorite character? I did find some of these characters that I'm not crushing on, or in real life I wouldn't, but they are my favorite characters. And I have 5 and I chose 2 because I cannot choose. So it's Mia from Nevernight and Benji from Us Against You are my top 2 favorite characters of this year. They're so complex and so tragic. I think because they're so tragic, they're my favorite characters, because I just love following someone who is tragic and who will make me cry. So Mia and Benji. The 3 that I am just mentioning are The Witcher from The Last Wish, Ender from Ender's Game, and Karen from My Favorite Thing is Monsters. So these are just quick mentions because I loved following them around. Oh, this question is very, very interesting. A book that made you cry. There's a book that made me cry because I wanted to cry, because I think crying feels good, especially crying for a book, you know, it's a feel-good cry. Then there's another book that made me cry because I just did not know what to do with my body. There are different types of crying, okay? The crying where I wanted to cry is Ender's Game. I just, you know, I came to this point and I was like, okay, this is a good place to cry, and I was like, let's cry. In the book Us Against You by Friedrich Bachmann, I cried not because I wanted to, but because I just didn't know what to do else. You know, what else to do? What else can you do? But when stuff happens, you just have to cry. Or you can take action. Take action. Okay, so we have fixed things. Not really. Us Against You is the crying of all cryings. It's definitely a winner for this question. Which book made me cry? Us Against You. The next question is a happy one, a book that made you happy. And for me, crying makes me happy. So books that made me cry make me happy. But for the sake of this question and, you know, a different answer, I will go with books that made me grin and laugh. I have here 4 books, but I will mention Starless Sea as the book that made me most happy because it has a lot of stories and it has a lot of characters. I was just content to be in this book. The next question is your favorite book to movie / TV show that you've seen so far. Good Omens on Amazon. I read the book Good Omens this year in January, I think, and it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I expected a bit more because I couldn't really connect with the characters. In this TV show, it's such an amazing adaptation. But the things that they added that weren't in the book, but they added some things in the TV show, I think they were perfect and I really enjoyed it. The next question is actually, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought or gotten this year? And this question is so easy because I have it here already, and it's Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This book is just so beautiful. When we are talking about graphic novels, Japanese graphic novels are just superior. They're superior, okay? They're superior in art. They are superior in plot, in characters. Once you meet Japanese novels, manga, there's no going back. And I will admit, I've read some manga when I was in high school and I haven't read any since then. And now I'm in Japan, so obviously it's the perfect time to get this because everyone is talking about it, and also get it in Japanese, which I did, so I can like practice my kanji game and real vocabulary game and stuff. It is so beautiful, okay? It is so beautiful. I cannot. Do you see the beauty? Do you see the grace? And we have a question of what books do you need to read by the end of this year? I have a bookshelf on Goodreads which is called 2020, and there are 44 books in this shelf, and these 44 books I will read by the end of this year. The physical books that I have and that I want to read, Dune is the book that I want to read, like want to start right now, today or tomorrow. I'm very much into science fiction currently, and this book is getting a TV show, I think, or a film or something. There's gonna be an adaptation, and I want to read this book before I watch this adaptation. And my dad is really obsessed with this book, and he says like it's great, blah blah. So I'm really excited to pick this up. Next books that I want to finish are the ones that I'm in the middle of. Stormfront by Jim Butcher. This book, it's gonna take some time. I'm at page 92 and I think the writing is really simple and unremarkable. Sorry, I think like the main character is fine, it's nothing special. The fantasy element is really minimal. This book that I'm in the middle of is Elements of Eloquence. It is absolutely phenomenal. This book is about rhetoric. It's about how to make sentences, how to make your writing sound like Shakespeare, for example. Just knowing that this rhetoric has rules that one can follow and become a great writer gives me hope in the future. I like this book so much. So much. The last book that I'm currently reading is The Name of the Rose, which it's about Sherlock Holmes type of priest who is in this monastery in the 14th century uncovering who is killing off monks in this monastery. And this book is not really crime as much as it is philosophical and just talking about the politics and the world and the, you know, the Pope versus the state and philosophizing about religion. It is absolutely phenomenal. This book I am flying through. This book is the best book I'm currently reading and I haven't finished it yet, but I will definitely take the time to recommend it. I want to try Murakami's other works, and the first one is this one, which is 3 books in one. My mother read it, she said it was phenomenal, so I'm really looking forward to that. And yes, it's in English. The next book is the nonfiction by Murakami, and this is the one that I want to read in Japanese because it's in Japanese. And I want to read it because it's nonfiction. I think reading nonfiction in a foreign language is much easier than reading fiction. And it is Ai ni tsuite kataru toki ni wareware no kataru koto, which is what we talk about when we talk about love. I wanted to buy What We Talk About When We Talk About Running, and I just did not think there were more of What We Talk About books from Murakami, so I was just like, oh, What We Talk About, click. I didn't even like see the I kanji for love, so yes, now I'm stuck with this one, but I will read it and I will appreciate it and I will learn more vocabulary through it. Okay, so the next books that I want to read are a few that we'll just mention by name. They're the, you know, the hyped up books that I want to get to. So they're The Goldfinch, Wolf Hall, Station 11 and Sight. These are like some of the most popular books that I still haven't read and I want to read so I can see where I stand with them. And lastly, we have a few classics that I want to get to. First, we have 2 that I own. I want to read them because I own them, and it's As I Lay Dying by Faulkner and Men Without Women by Hemingway. So these 2 are at the top of my list because, you know, I already have them, like the most popular ones that I haven't read yet. And the most popular one is 1984 by Orwell. Yes, I still haven't read that one. The next book that I want to read is Frankenstein. Again, it's such a short book, I don't know what I'm doing. Read it already, Maya. A Tale of Two Cities is the book that I want to just take my time with. I want to buy a beautiful hardcover and I want to get my highlighters out and I want to highlight beautiful sentences and just like settle in with this book. I'm saving it for like November, December because I'm having these vibes from this book. I don't know. Next we have Wuthering Heights, which is also one of the classics that is very much referenced in other works, so I wanna read it already so I don't get spoiled. And then we have John Steinbeck's 2 books, Of Mice and Men and Grapes of Wrath. As I said, John Steinbeck's East of Eden I finished a few days ago and I really liked it. And with this I would conclude the classics that I want to read and also this whole book tag, because this was the last question and now I want you to answer me which books are the best and worst books that you've read this year. And I will see you in one of my next videos where I will be making more book recommendations, and take care.